Well, good afternoon, everyone. Can everybody hear me? You could nod your head, nod your head to this. All right. Hey, thanks, John McBride. So as more people begin to file in, waiting for our guest speaker to arrive. Should be here shortly. And we'll get started as soon as Julian arrives as well. How's everyone's Saturday going thus far? Good?
Going good, David. How are you?
Hey, Carlos. How are you, man? How's everything?
Doing good. Doing good.
Going pretty good. It's really a good day.
No, Ross. No. Let me see you, Renault. I want to see you. How have you been, man? Renault, how have you been? He'll get back to me when he can.
Good afternoon, Dave. How you doing, sir?
Jesse Vargas, how are you, man?
All right, man.
Okay, it's good to see you, sir.
All right. Good to be here.
Where are you? Where are you in the world?
Georgia.
Georgia, beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Beautiful. How's the weather there? How's the weather
Right by
down there?
Atlanta. It's nice today.
Nice today. Good.
Yeah, it's about 60 out there right now, a little sunshine, so not too bad.
Not too bad. Good. Well, thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
Nice, nice. And we are just waiting for our guest
So
speaker.
this is my first time here, David. Could you tell me a little bit about what?
I can, and I'm going to go into that later, but I'm going to tell you a little bit
Okay.
about it anyway. Are you currently a Cyversity member?
I just graduated with an IT cybersecurity diploma last month.
Okay.
Started my education a couple of years ago, a few years ago, older, later in life, so I wanted to do a little something, and I always liked computers, and I wanted a better life, better paycheck, and the only way to get it is go back to school. So I went back to school, and working a full-time job, going full-time school it's been difficult, no lie. You know what I'm saying? And now the challenge is finding a role. And the thing about it now, I mean, now that I'm into it now and learning all this cybersecurity business, and finding a role is not easy. And also it's because there's a big gap between I went to college, and sure, they basically introduced me to it.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot, but you know what I'm saying? You really need more training. These companies are not just asking for, your education. Well, bachelor's or whatever. What experience do you got?
Right.
And so how can you get experience if you don't get a job? I mean, but so that's where I'm at. And so I'm, I seen y'all and I was reading and I like what I read, So I thought I'd jump in the bandwagon and see what I can see, what can I learn? And get some ideas, and basically that's basically why I'm here. You know what I'm saying?
Good place for it, Jesse. Well, Cyversity is an organization that's really focused around helping women and minorities and underserved folks get access to
Exactly.
cybersecurity industry. It does have some of its difficulties, and it does in its own way come in waves where people have a lot of experience, formal education. Some folks have, just the basics, and some folks have absolutely none. So this is a good place to come and start and learn and begin to grow and develop all of those, as we say, your chops or your practitioner capabilities. The organization has programs that are directed, that are created and designed to help foster education, access, employment opportunities, additional learning. And,
I see the variety. That's one of the reasons that really appealed to me, especially with my orders, like myself, A lot of people told me, why you get in there? When I graduated this community college, I was out of 300 graduates. I was the only one out of all of them that had an IT cybersecurity diploma.
It's an interesting and sometimes tough environment. And today we're going to hear from one of the people that I consider to be, one of the tenured folks in the industry. And you'll find out even from listening to our speaker today, that we don't always start at the same place.
Exactly.
But we,
No, we
Exactly.
don't.
Yeah.
but we,
Well,
and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
okay, that's okay. Well, I got on LinkedIn and I've met a lot of, the cybersecurity community is pretty awesome. There's a lot of people I've talked to,
yeah,
I have got a lot of information, a lot of advice, and I'm trying to take it in, channel it right. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's different. You know what I'm saying? And
yes, sir.
I know I jumped on it. I always like the challenge, and a lot of people tell me, well, you really jumped in. So maybe, but I mean, everything's possible. I like it. You know what I'm saying? Hey, I completed my little degree. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I'm just focusing on and getting where I need to go.
Well, let me say this to you. Thank you for coming. Our guest is here. And as you can see on the screen, today we're going to be talking to the chairman of the board for Cyversity, Julian Waite Sr. He is here.
Okay.
Julian, how are you, sir?
Hey, brother, how you doing, David?
Man,
I need to apologize up front. I forgot that Gasparilla is today in Tampa.
Oh, yeah.
And my wife and I were invited to be in the mayor's tent, Mayor Jane's tent for this thing. And she would not forgive me if I didn't come. I tried to get back into my hotel room. And you know how it is when you have a late checkout, you have to get the key changed out. Well, I forgot to change the key out. So that's why I'm sitting outside with the noise. So I apologize for it.
But you're in Tampa, though, so it's very beautiful, I'm sure, and you're enjoying the weather there, man. I got to tell you. Hey, look, Julian, I got to go through a couple of things, housekeeping rules, just to make sure that that everything is everybody's. I appreciate you coming, my man. Hey, so everyone, thank you for coming. So for those who are here and those who are probably going to see us on demand at a later date. But this is Cyversity's, this is Cyversity Engage. This is our interview impact series where we interview folks that are luminaries in the security industry, luminaries in industry, period, because all of what we do is going to be affected by cybersecurity or technology. And so this Cyversity is one of the organizations that has, over time, for the last 7 years, been focused on consistently creating and achieving representation for women and minorities through cybersecurity programs. And those programs are designed to foster recruitment, retention, like you were speaking about, Mr. Vargas, inclusion, and of course, equity and diversity. For the most part, we've got quite a few things that we do here at our organization. But we focus on career exploration, which is something you'd be interested in, Mr. Vargas.
Yes.
We focus on cybersecurity skills and assessment, developing your whole self, your cybersecurity self, or your technology practitioner self, and your whole self. We also work on developing and engaging events, scholarships, training, mentorship programs, and of course, the biggest thing in the room is having the ability to network and create a network of folks that can help you through your career process, your career path. We're a membership organization. If any of you here are not a member and you wish to become a member, you got that little QR seen on the screen now. Just scan that, and you'll be able to go through the process of registering to be a member, and someone will, of course, connect with you. We are a membership program, right? We're a membership organization, so that there are students here that invest in themselves, $20 a year, and professionals like myself and Mr. Waits and Dr. Pate and Carlos, who invest $100 a year of sponsorship or support to support Cyversity and its missions. Over the course of the year, we focus on a couple of topic areas: career development, career spotlighting, transitioning, from where you are to where you're going, leadership conversations, tech talks, and the like. And of course, over the course of the year, we focus on diversity highlights at any given part of the year. Next month, of course, is Black History Month. 1 month is never enough for us, for the Black history, for Asian Americans, for Pacific Islanders, for LGBTQ, for Latinos. There's never enough time. 1 month is never enough, but for the time that we do focus heavily. Here's some ground rules. Everyone should be muted. Mute yourselves, mute your background so that we don't get background noise. This conversation is usually about 60 minutes, and we focus on, again, leadership, diversity, and inclusion. And there will be a question and answer period. So you can put some questions in the chat if you want, but I always ask people, come off mute, become visible so we can see you, so you can ask your question. This is being recorded, as you already know, because you got it when you came into the program. So here's an opportunity for us to, to have that conversation. At the end of the program, we want to thank you for attending, but we'd also like to hear from you so that you can give us your opinions on how our programming went. And that's that's the link. I'll put it in the chat so that all of you can pull it down and begin to, and then, give us your feedback. But without further ado, I wanted to introduce our guest speaker today, who again is the chairman of the board for Cyversity. And Julian's got an incredible record of accomplishments. It's lengthy, it's extensive, and obviously it's, in a scenario where you've been in the business for a while, you create a ton of collaborative relationships in industry, academia, and so forth. You'll be interested to know that he didn't start in cybersecurity, but I won't steal his thunder there. But as you can see, we're going to be today talking to Julian Waits, and I am going to stop sharing so that we can get back to our presentation here today. Julian, I sent you a couple of questions, but look, this is for me, it's a highly anticipated sort of a meeting, and it's a welcome pleasure to have you on our interview impact series. So how have you been, man? You look relaxed. You look great and look relaxed, man.
So things have been good. Since I've transitioned to Rapid7, it's been a great now almost a year and a half since I've been with the company. People say that, culture trumps strategy any day of the week.
Yes.
Corey has created a great culture here at Rapid7, very welcoming to everyone. And it's allowed me to flourish in the environment. Wife is doing great. She's still being a missionary in Kenya. Beautiful. And loving life, though she's home with me right now. She's actually down with the mayor while I'm here at the hotel. And I just have to thank God for the many blessings in my life. I have no complaints.
And you started with the right scenario. Thank God for all that we have. It's part of it's part of the best thing, part of our life. You've had a rather extraordinary career. And even with that extraordinary career, you didn't begin as an information and cyber technologist, yet that career has placed you in close proximity to some of the industry leaders. So for the audience, folks that are here, like Jesse Vargas and a couple others who don't necessarily know you, for those here in the audience and those that are going to be on demand later, can you tell us a little bit more about the Julian Waits sort of journey, if you will, to where you are today?
Sure. So, born and raised just outside of New Orleans, poor family. Father was a full-time Baptist pastor, and I was raised to be a Baptist pastor. So initially what I thought I would be in life is a preacher, and I was an ordained Baptist minister until I was about 20 years old, I think, is when I came to the conclusion that this wasn't the right profession for me. And I was also a jazz performance major in college at Loyola, and still love jazz music, jazz and gospel and blues till this day. It's in my bones, so to speak. And the IT career started because, like a lot of people, we aren't always born with all the facilities that you would like to have in life to do things. And I live with ADHD. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, for those who are not familiar with the term. And we didn't know that until my son was 8 years old, that was 21 years ago. So I went through my childhood and college with ADHD, not knowing what it was. So I wanted to be a professional jazz musician, typical gigging, active jazz musician, any musician actually. When they're not gigging, they're practicing 8 hours a day like it's a job. If I could get an hour to an hour and a half in, I was doing good with my ADD. But like a lot of people with ADD, I hyper-focused in the area, and my areas of hyper-focus were math and science. So when things weren't working out with my jazz career, I'll never forget Ellis Marcellus telling me one day, he said, son, You're very talented, but you just won't practice.
Mm.
I was like, I'm trying. I don't know why I can't. I try to practice. And I decided to take a computer science class at Loyola. I did okay, not great. Loyola had a co-op with Xavier University, who I still support to this day, even though I never graduated with a college degree. And I got this one nun. She's now since no longer with us, Sister Eileen Benton. And she pulled me on the side one day, David, and she says, you know, Julian, how do you work? And I said, well, ma'am, I work the graveyard shift at Texaco at night as a computer operator. And she goes, you know, you shouldn't have graduated from high school. Your math skills are deplorable, but I think you can be a really good computer scientist. Would you allow me to tutor you in math? And I said, yes, please. I need to learn math better. You're right. So she tutored me in math. And basically, while I was at Xavier, before I quit to start my career, I never made less than a B in a computer science class after that.
Mm.
And but Texaco then promoted me to a computer programmer, and I was the only person in the department. And you think about this, it was a late '80s, early '90s. C programming was. I apologize for that. The hotel was just trying to call me. C programming was an anomaly, and so in any event, I started in IT and programming. You know, mid '90s. Security started to become a thing where it went beyond cyberpunks to people actually trying to extort money. So the dollars were low at the time. Being raised as a Baptist minister, it was always important to me. It was built into me by my parents to protect things. And so security was just a natural place for me to be. So I've now been in the security industry for over 20 years.
Wow. That's an amazing, first of all, I hear so many similarities to your path, to mine, and I'm sure to others too. One of the things that I noticed about you, Julian, is that you're a big proponent of why. Right? I've heard you speak, and I've researched your thoughts on the subject of why. So whether that's why start a company, why have a security program, what's the purpose of all of that? Why have a security team? Why risk? Why this? Why be a security practitioner? And I've noticed that you focused on that term, why, to understand an individual or a corporate why. What's the significance of why for you? What does it mean to you? And why do you focus on why so much?
So there's a book I read a few years ago, David, by Simon Sinek
Simon
is the
Sinek.
name of the author. And the title of the book is Start With Why. Now, before reading the book, my parents always taught me to ask the question, why? Purpose is what makes me go from day to day. You know, just like a lot of the younger generation today, if I don't feel like I have a reason to go to work that's doing something better for everybody else, then why do it? And so everything I do, from the time I wake up, the question is, why am I doing this and what am I trying to accomplish? So, you know, why cybersecurity? It's a big problem. It's getting worse year after year. Ransomware seems to be something that's undefeatable. And it virtually is, right? In terms of, you know, we have to respond to it. We can't necessarily stop it. Why is that the case? And what are the things that I can do to help make things better for people? Mm-hmm. So I think to just to live our lives and to be, you know, lifelong learners, it always starts with the question of why.
Right. And in your conversations about why you asked the question, why create a security program to benefit, to support the corporation, their mission. You focused on that in a couple of conversations about creating a specific why for a security program to protect an organization. Can you delve into that just a little bit, just to tell us
Sure.
We know, yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, here's the deal. Remember, security is an attribute. When I talk to CISOs or security practitioners and operators, and all they can talk about is tech, and I'm a guy who builds and sells tech, I know they've lost before they've started. If I'm working for a retailer, a big part of my why, if I'm in security, is how do I protect this personal identifiable information, credit card information, uh, potentially depending on what you do in the industry and retail, or maybe even social security numbers and stuff like that. If I'm in a hospital and I'm in the healthcare, how do I protect this information about these individuals that potentially in the wrong hands can be used to hurt someone? Or if I can't get access to it, I might hurt them inadvertently. So every security program, everything you should do is, what is the mission of the organization? What is it that needs to be done to protect it? Why is this occurring? And what can I do to make it better? But it all starts with, why am I here?
Right, right. You know, in your time in the industry, you've been called what's called a serial entrepreneur. And this, you know, as we know, is not an easy road to take, and it's not for everyone.
No, it isn't.
You took that road, and there's a why associated with you taking that road. So this is a multi-part question, but I wanted to ask the question: why did you step out and become a serial entrepreneur?
So it's an interesting question, David. It's a very good question. You know, when I was a child in New Orleans, and my parents were both born in, my dad was actually, one both born in the same decade. My dad was born in 1929. My mom was born in 1931. And what I was taught as a child, especially being a Black man in the South, born in the 60s, was, hey, son, we just want you to grow up and get a good job one day. Mm-hmm. We just want you to get a good job, raise a family, be a good citizen to society. And then when I started working in high tech, and I didn't like being poor, so I'll be quite frank about that, I started thinking about what are the things I needed to do to live better than what my parents had, which thank God they wanted for me. And what was it I was doing that was holding me back? Why couldn't I do what I saw others doing? And so as I progressed in my career, at one point in time, I worked for BMC Software in Houston, which is probably the greatest experience I had in my entire career, because there were some people who didn't look like me, meaning white guys, who decided to take me under their wings and mentor me. And they asked me, why are you here and what are you trying to accomplish? And I went, well, the why of why I'm here is, one, I'm learning new things every day about technology. And I loved, at that time I was doing database management, performance management for databases. And what I want to accomplish is, I'd like to be wealthy, not just for myself, but to also help others one day.
Of course.
And so those guys took me under their wings, and ultimately I went into buy-side mergers and acquisitions, where, you know, for one point I was a business development guy, where I was building relationships with other companies, technology relationships. Now I'm working on core corporate strategy, and I'm trying to help to grow the business for the future, to make sure that we have an enduring future. And I'm acquiring companies. And you know me, brother, I'm really frank. I was a lot smarter than some of those entrepreneurs that we acquired, and we gave them millions of dollars, millions. And I went, dear Lord Jesus, if these idiots, and God forgive me for saying it that way, can get this much money out of this corporation for the things that they built, why not me?
Sure.
And that's what started my desire to go to be a CEO of a startup, to work in new businesses, to also provide mentoring to other people who want to do new businesses. And that led to, you know, from one adventure to the next. My first startup was a company, the code name was Brabian. And I don't know if you're familiar with that term or not.
Okay.
But it comes, so, you know, Old Testament of the Judeo-Christian Bible is written in Aramaic. Yep. The New Testament is written in Greek. When the Apostle Paul talks about, I press towards that mark, which is in Christ Jesus, that prize, that word prize in Greek is Brabian. And what it means, because Apostle Paul loved to use analogies that had to do with sports, except back then, you were in an arena with a lion or with another person, and only one person was walking out. Right. And so when he talked about the prize that was in Christ Jesus, what he was saying was, it's something that I'm willing to give my life for as I strive for this thing. Right. And so that first startup, Brabian, was what God gave me to work with. And it was a joint venture that I did with PwC. raised $10 million initially. Ultimately, I think we raised probably $40 million, combined that with Archer Technologies, and then along with a lot of smart people, including John Archer, sold that business to RSA in December of 2009 for $189,000 on a, well, I can say it now, $14 million run rate. It was unheard of. And that was my first taste of, wow, I can really do this. Because the one lesson that God taught me through that process is, because I was, up until that point, my career was built on what Julian could do. And through my Bravian experience, I learned every software company, most businesses, it's about the people. And it was about the people who were around me, because they were way smarter than me and accomplished more than I did. And I was just there to provide strategy and guidance, and the whole thing came together. And since then, it's been, I don't know, 7 or 8 companies since then, and I'm not done yet.
That's right. You're not. It's awesome. That's awesome to hear that, Julian. That's so inspiring for many of us, and it's inspiring for me. Staying in that lane, as you went through your entrepreneurial engagement, what are some of the things and encounters that you engaged in that taught you lessons, some of the very lessons that you're teaching others today? Give us a sense of the understanding of what you encountered and how that shaped your mentoring and coaching that you do today.
So let's put it in 3 buckets. The first lesson that Julian had to learn was humility. Even though I had ADHD, very high IQ'd individual, near Mensa, high school was a breeze. College, other than math, was a breeze. And then when I figured the math thing out, all of a sudden computers take off, and, very blessed. God put me in one position from one to the next, and career takes off. So it's really easy to get full of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I started working in environments with venture capitalists, and had to realize that there were people way smarter than me on this planet who knew a lot more, it required that I humble myself so that I can listen. Because, as the idiom goes, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. And I was used to talking all the time. And all of a sudden, I had to start listening a lot more so I could learn from people who had done successfully what I was just learning to do for the first time. So humility was first on the list. The next thing was integrity, right? My parents literally beat into me. If I lied to my dad, I got, excuse me for saying it this way, everyone, I got my ass whipped. And if I was disrespectful to my mother, I got my ass whipped even worse. And so being able to tell the truth, being where I said I was going to be when I was supposed to be there, understanding that in life, to lie about something to someone is basically like stealing something away from them, was important. And so, having people know that if they invested $5 million, $10 million, $20 million, $30 million into something that I was doing, and they could trust me not to ever take any of that money and use it for my own personal uses, because there's tons of stories about how people do that. And look at this whole FTX thing that's going on right now. The guy raised billions of dollars, loans from the company to buy personal houses and, in the islands and everything. Well, I never wanted to have that reputation. That wasn't something that was built in me. It wasn't in my DNA. And so integrity was it. And then number 3 was understanding that others are more important than self. Like I said, up until the point that I had Bravian, most of my career, all of my career, not most, was completely based on what Julian could do, what Julian could learn, what Julian could achieve, what's the report card that Julian has. And when I started running a company, I did it very poorly at first, like a lot of first-time CEOs. And it wasn't until my mentors were able to set me down, and one of my investors, who's still one of my mentors to this day, over 20 years, set me down and went, it's not all about you. It's all about what you can do through others. And so now, what's more important to me than anything, it's why one of the reasons when Devin came up with this idea that Cyversity was created, is how can we help others to achieve not what we've achieved, but go further than what we've achieved. And every company I run, every leadership position I take, it's not good enough to help someone grow up. I want to see them do better than what I've done. That's the
Gotcha.
legacy I want to leave.
That's a great statement. And you said the word, man, Julian, that's an incredible statement. It reminded me of a couple things recently, not recently, but a short while ago, about a month or two ago, my barber, all right, a Christian man, said to me, Dave, all this stuff that you're doing, have you ever stopped to think to ask God to be your strategic business partner? I mean, just to stop and then
Wow,
go before
that's deep.
God's throne. Yeah. I mean,
That's deep.
I'm still working on my prayer muscle, right? And so to stop and then say, Father, jump in here because for any number of reasons, especially the ones that you were talking about, in not just doing for yourself, but living into your purpose. And I think, like you, my purpose is help people.
I know that's your purpose.
Yeah. In technology, what is it? People, process, and technology. I stay focused and centered on people. But let me get back to your statement, because I'm feeling you, Julian. I'm feeling you.
Yeah.
You said Cyversity, right? And you're a part of this organization that in many ways is leading the charge to create the next new generation of cyber practitioners from quote unquote the underbelly of America.
Exactly.
It's not, yeah. And so I appreciate you. Yeah. So, you're part of that organization and you're an industry leader, and Cyversity is focusing on addressing what I consider to be like a basic tenet of business, supply and demand. So we're trying to create the supply to meet the cybersecurity demand. That's where you are a leader in this organization. So tell me, why is that important to you? I mean, so many say, so what? Why does Julian not say, so what?
So this is an easy equation. I think right now in North America alone, there's well over 1 million job openings for cyber related, not just IT, cyber related jobs. It's a field that's dominated by white males. And as I say all the time, I don't have anything against white males. All of my original mentors were white males. There weren't Black people in this industry. I'm 57 years old now when I first started this. And so those white guys that said, hey, let me help you out. So it's not their fault that they had the opportunity and the access. But God, shame on me if I don't take what they gave me and give it back into the community that I came from. Give it back to people who are, underrepresented in this industry. And so the big thing that became important to me, David, was, it became about, one, what's the platform to do it? Because before I met Devin and he mentioned this ideal to me, I was stuck. I was like, man, I want to do more. I want to be able to help. I just don't know where to do it because there weren't any organizations at that time that was designed to do what we were trying to do.
Right.
And it was at RSA, I want to say 12 years ago. I arranged a meeting at the St. Regis where, Corey Thomas was there, myself, Devin Bryan, I want to say Eric Perminer, Larry Whiteside, I think David Liscombe was in that circle where it was all Black dudes. We were all busy. We all had tons of meetings. And I said, look, I just want us to get together, hold hands, and say a prayer before we start this conference. We did that. And then a week later, I get a call a week or two later, I get a call from Devin, who I don't know that well at that point. And of course, because he knew I was a former minister, as you know, a lot of people call me Rev. He says, hey, Rev, my wife and I are going to be in Tampa. We'd like to meet with you. And I go, fine. And they were at the Tampa Water Street, which is less than 3 miles from where I'm sitting right now. And we get together, and he says, I have this idea for this organization. Of course, the original name, which I hated, International Consortium of Minority Cybersecurity Professionals, was the name he came up with. And he says, I need 2 things from you. So anything, I'd love to see this start. I need your Rolodex because I know you're connected in the industry, and I need you to write a check. And I did both. And I've still been contributing my Rolex and my checks ever since.
There you go.
Gladly, by the way. So Cyversity is a labor of love for me. It is more important to me than my job. It's more important to me than almost anything other than my family. Because again, it's, as I tell my children, it's not enough to me what I did for them. What really is meaningful for me and what's more meaningful for them in life is to see what I've accomplished that will even survive them and live beyond them. And I think Cyversity is one of those things, as you know, because you've been a critical and pivotal part of Cyversity's history. We've teetered on the brink of not being around a couple of times.
Sure.
People are people, issues are issues. And it wasn't until we decided to learn from those constituents who are involved in the program, and quite frankly, David, listening to people like you, that we were able to turn the corner and turn it into something that was flourishing and provided value to the community again. So I don't even remember what I was answering, brother, but that just came from my heart.
Such really kind statements, and I really appreciate them coming from you, Julian, especially you, because you've been, in your own way, you've mentored me, right? In your own way. If I've asked for something and you'll give me 1 or 2 sentences, and I got to go get that. I got to go get that done.
That's about right.
That's about right, right? That's about right. I read a Brookings Institute study about 6-7 months ago, and it focused on the fact that education in this country, education in other countries is delivered to everyone across the board. Everybody gets a chance to get educated, and that helps them in their own country in a nationalistic way, help them create economic buoyancy for the country. But in America, we have not educated anyone. The Brookings Institute article stated that this country has lost or not gained access to literally $623 trillion in economic value because everyone is not trained and everyone is not educated in order to be able to contribute to the economic value or buoyancy of this country.
I haven't seen that study, but I can tell you I agree with it. And by the way, before you finish, I do have ADHD, so I'm warning everybody on this call, you got to deal with it. I've told you up front. To answer the question from the previous question, the biggest reason I do this is if you got a male-dominated industry, white male-dominated industry with over 1 million jobs, and there's not enough white guys to do it, then we all need to join the party.
Yeah.
I apologize for that. That's what the punchline was.
And I was going to go back to that with this comment about if we're not educating, we've got millions of jobs, we've got a large population of women and minorities, Appalachia, Brownsville, Brooklyn, Cabrini Green. If we're not educating those folks in those communities, our folks, I'm from Brownsville, in those communities to be a part of this whole cybersecurity or technology. I mean, we're killing the bench, first of all. Well, let me ask a damn question, right? I mean, how do you see this lack of education in our country? Is it systemic? Is it performative? Is it on purpose? I mean, we're losing.
I don't think it's on purpose, David. Okay. I think the issue is especially since I've now been to most of the countries in the world. And the one thing I can tell you that's very different about our educational system than most other places is so much is dependent on the teachers that you get there. Meaning if you go to Japan, you have different teachers, but the educational system has such a rigor that everybody basically gets the same education. In the United States, the teacher has to give a damn, right? And then a lot of times the teachers, especially if you come from a community I came from, since I was one of the badass kids in the room, they've got to deal with these detractors in the room who can't stop talking and everything else. And so I think our education system loses it in those areas. But I will tell you that I believe things are getting better rather than worse in terms of trying to improve our education system. But our education system, the way we view it, is very different than most of the other areas in the world. Meaning, I would tell you that on an economic average, teachers in Asian countries don't make any more money on a percentage basis, cost of living index, than they do in the United States. Yet they are worshipped by the communities that they're in.
Yes.
When's the last time you worshiped an elementary teacher? Think about that. And so much of it is it's our own fault as a society.
Right.
And the only way it gets better, like I now personally, just to put it on the record, I'm now personally, mentor is not the right word, sponsoring 2 elementary schools here in the Hillsborough County area, where I go in and help the teachers with cyber topics, because how they're going to teach something that they don't understand themselves.
Yep.
And then I spend time with the student talking about topics, talking about this as a career. And like, I'll give you a perfect example, David. There's one here called Lopez Elementary, and the principal, Yamine, is just an awesome woman. So when I go into school, she comes and says, "Hey, Julian, most of our kids at this school, have government assistance, financial assistance, and a large percentage of the kids have ADHD." And I'm sorry, there's a helicopter right above me, but I walked in the room with my bottle of ADD pills. And the first thing I did is I told these kids, I said, "Look, I have ADHD and I'm dyslexic. And guess what? It worked out okay.
Sure.
If anybody is telling you that you won't achieve in your life and that you can't because you're dyslexic or you have ADHD, I'm not going to curse in this classroom because you guys are too young to hear me do that. I do it way too often. And I don't care if it's your parent. You need to tell them to eat it. That's not the way you're going to go. That's not your destiny. Your destiny is to achieve the best that you possibly can. And any learning disorder is not going to stop you from doing that. I have them all. And I still made it through."
Great. Hey, Julian, recently there was like a little bit of an employment bloodbath out in Silicon Valley. Google, Microsoft, AWS, Facebook, all of these guys went through or are going through this employee layoffs. It looks like to the tune of like 1,600, a little bit more than 1,600 a day. So we're at 59,000 since January 1 that we've experienced this huge layoff by these companies. We know that they're laying off employees, and it seems like they're going heavier to contractors. How does the training and education of folks in our communities help or even help leverage against that kind of, how do we get folks trained so they can be a part of this next generation of cybersecurity practitioners that are remote, on-site, hybrid, or what have you? How do we even?
So what I would tell you is, one, I don't have any statistics to prove this or numbers, but I think security people have been less impacted by this than general, like developers, marketing people, so have you. The reason I think we're in this situation is we created the problem, meaning for years, the technology industry has been very frothy. If the average in the market for a brick and mortar business or retailer or whatever has been, let's say 3 to 5 times, they were worth 3 to 5 times what their revenue was. In high tech, and specifically in security, we've been more like 20 to 40x, which is outrageous. There was nothing to really substantiate that other than the emotion on Wall Street. And so now what we're dealing with is a correction. But the way I will tell you, the way I've avoided this in the past as a worker, and what I tell everyone is, don't desire a job, desire a position. Meaning, even as a standard developer in today's market with the internet, it's a lot cheaper for me to go to Eastern Europe or India than it is to hire a kid who spends a lot of money in the United States for a computer science degree to come work for me. So it's all about the specialization that you go after. I will tell you, cyber in and of itself has a huge specialization. There's a million job opens. You get laid off from Google or Microsoft or whoever it is that's had these jobs. There are opportunities for you if you have experience. But outside of that, it's about specialization.
Right.
I don't want to be the person that just writes the software. I want to be the person that designs the way the software should be written.
Wow.
I want to be the person who's talking to the people who are telling me what it is that they'll want to buy. So I'm so important to the organization that if they lose me, they lose revenue.
Mm.
If I'm not in the equation, it hurts.
It hurts. That hurts. And that's putting yourself in the line of money. Right?
That's exactly right.
Between where, yeah. So listen, I got a lot of questions, but Julian, I gotta step back and say to the rest of the folks here that are here and the folks that will be on demand, I know there are some other folks in the audience that probably would like to have some questions. I do want to make this as interactive as possible because
Sure.
all of us can learn something from Julian and all of us can learn something from each other. So if you've got a question, you don't have to put it in the chat. You can come off mute and even come on visually so we can see you and interrupt and ask a question. See that, Carlos, one of my mentees, Carlos, immediately jumped in. Immediately, Carlos jumped in and came on. So, Carlos, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do.
Please.
Hey, Carlos.
Hey, Julian. Thank you for making time to talk to us. How did you manage your ADHD to be successful and to help you out? It's I also have ADHD, and so it's something I struggle with, but I think just a lot of people in general do.
Yeah, so it's interesting for me, Carlos. That's a great question. So I didn't know what ADHD was until my oldest son was diagnosed with it when he was 8 years old. At the time, I lived in Washington, D.C. The elementary school he was going to at the time was Montrose Baptist, actually. And, they called my ex-wife and said, hey, we're having problems with Julian. He won't listen. He keeps talking in class. And, you guys need to do something. And, I initially told my wife, oh, they used to say the same thing about me. And look, I turned out fine. But the third time we had to address it, right? So I go to the school, my wife and I, we meet with the administration, and they mentioned this thing, ADD. And I go, well, what's that? Nothing's wrong with my son. What are you trying to do? Say something's wrong with my son? I was ready to punch somebody in the face, right? And then the principal was very careful to walk me through what it was. And all of a sudden, I started recognizing a few things. Like, wow, I went through all of that. So then we went to a psychiatrist, paid a lot of money for some tests. And they came back and they said, yeah, he has ADD, and here's what it's going to be like. And I sat in the office with the psychiatrist and I cried my guts out. And he goes, oh, you really love your son? I said, of course I love my son, but stop it. You're telling me this thing has a name. Potentially, if I need it, I can take medication to help with it. And there's lots of resources for me to learn about it. Says yes. And so, Carlos, at that point, I dug in hard, not for myself, mostly for my son. I didn't want him to live through what I did. I used to go home every day and get whipped because I had a note from the teachers about how I wouldn't shut up in class or how disruptive I was in class. And my parents would ask me constantly, why won't you stop doing this? And I kept going. I don't know why I can't stop. I just don't know why.
Oh, wow.
And now I had tools and I had information. And I made sure that my son would never live the school education that I did. But the number one thing I did is I started reading books about ADHD. Initially, I will tell you, I overused the medication. Now I still take medication. I take the 4-hour variant of the pills, and I use them very strategically. I use my pills either when I have to produce something that's very important that requires focus, or I need to learn something that requires focus. Otherwise, I go back to being big picture strategy Julian. So it's learning how. And some people have to take the pills all the time. It just depends on the degree of ADHD you have. But again, I learned how to use ADHD and other things as a tool in my repertoire to help my career rather than hold my career back.
Okay, I like that. Thank you.
Incredible. You know, Julian, while you're saying this, and David, I'm going to go to Ty next, and then you. Okay, David. Good to see you, though, brother. Good to see you, man. But what I learned that same lesson that you just talked about, Julian, with my son, my youngest son, my youngest son, Juwan, who happens today to be a very big recording artist. He would sit in class, and the teacher would relate to me that he's constantly moving and constantly tapping. And so one day he came home one day, and I said, "So, what's up with the tapping? Why are you tapping? Do you even know what the teacher said?" And Julian, he related everything back to me. I said, "I don't believe that. Let's go up to the school." And we went up to the school, and I asked the teacher, I said, "He said this to me about the classwork. Is it right?" She said, "It's everything he said was exactly right." He's like a savant, right? He's like a savant. And this whole thing, which, I just learned so much about his ADHD that I learned about my own.
Right, because that's how I got diagnosed. Because it's hereditary. It was through my son that I even knew it had a name.
Right. I tell you. Hey, so Ty Lambo, man, welcome. Good to see you, Ty. Good to see you, brother.
Hey, nephew.
Yes.
Hello, Uncle Julian.
I know you've got a question for us, but it's really good to see you again, and thanks for joining us, Ty.
Thank you. So no, I wouldn't miss this for the world. So I took the risk, full disclosure, of offending my wife of almost 30 years, because we actually have a house walkthrough. We're selling our starter home from 20 years ago, and I didn't realize.
Oh, wow.
It conflicted with this meeting, but I said, I'm not going to miss it for the world.
Well,
because I have such a understanding wife, she was like, "Sure, it's from Uncle Julian, right? Sure." So also at the risk of self-promoting my own book, which is about autism, ADHD.
It's an excellent book.
I want to ask you a question, Julian, and I'm asking Uncle Julian. Sorry, I don't want you to smack me for not saying uncle. I really want to ask you a question that I feel like it's not self-serving, it's really more for the community, because you've done so much. Your story is just amazing. I mean, I've learned a lot just from listening to you, because I've never had you share some parts of your story that you shared this meeting. You need to put it in print. And if you haven't thought about that, I really would keep nagging you until you do that, because I think
I would have to talk to you about it. So, brother, I've had others to say it to me, and I want to put it in print. I would like to, again, as a part of that whole legacy. But before I say that, first and foremost, I want to thank you for meeting with my mentee, Stacy, through Cyversity. She told me she had an excellent meeting with you. I guess you're steering her a little bit towards the GRC side of things, and she's still leaning more towards operational security. But I want to thank you for your commitment to our community and to her and meeting with her. But let's talk sometime, because I know you have put it in print. I just have no clue about how to go about that process, guys. And I'd love to learn from you in terms of how to get it done.
Okay, consider it done. I would reach out to you and I'll bug you about that. So I think it's going to be really impactful for our community.
Thank you, brother.
I'll say no more. Thank you.
I love you, man.
I'm sorry. Just for a second, I just wanted to say this to Jesse Vargas. Jesse, you're new here, and what you just saw was what you just experienced between two senior cybersecurity practitioners is an exchange of how they support mentees in our Cyversity community, right? Ty, who is a leader in it, Ty is the first CISO for the city of Atlanta. He's the first chief information or security officer for the city of Atlanta. And he's got, and Julian, of course, we're talking about Julian today, and they exchange mentee opportunities to coach each other's mentees. This is the community, Jesse, where you belong and where people will respect and help you through your process.
Well,
Absolutely.
Can I just respond to? I tell you what, I have had plenty of meetings and with other calibrate, but I tell you what, this has been the most impactful. one I've been to.
Yeah.
Really has. And I'm so glad that I did come and join y'all today. It's awesome.
Come
It's
on and
awesome.
jump.
Thank you
It's-
for
Come on
saying
in.
that, Jeff.
Thank you very much, Jesse. I want to continue the questions because we got about 33 minutes left or less. David Lipscomb, good to see you again, brother. I know you have a question for our esteemed guest, Julian.
Yes, hello everyone. The biggest thing is that I suffer from ADHD too. And that was one of the things that you didn't realize.
As we both talk about when we get together for lunch, we can't get through lunch because we can't stop talking.
Right. It was great. And one thing I learned from Julian was that, we both found out, and through our children, because my child had issues and I'm out there and I'm saying, that's what my issue is. That's what my issue is. And I was just talking to my mother the other day. We were talking about it. And she says, I didn't know that when you were growing up. I would just pinch you to stay still, this, that, and the other. And I was smart in school.
It's the same thing with my parents, man.
They didn't know, but now we know. We take it to the next generation. So it has been one of those things that people don't understand, people who have ADHD. And you have to explain it to them that we have. And I do take, like you said, that medicine. Mine's an extended release. I need mine all day. But what I like to say is I have totally enjoyed this, from the one thing about, it went from ICMCP, which I had to learn that, to Cyversity, is that it is a family and that people can learn. But what I want to do is I want to thank you in the foundings and make sure that this continues on, as I said at the conference earlier this year, or last year now. But
late last year,
my question is, how do we, when we get to a certain part in our career, take it to the next level? What do we need? Because what gets you there doesn't keep you there. And so at that point, we want to make sure that as someone who is seasoned, we don't know everything. I listen a lot these days. People say that sometimes you're too quiet, but if the information that I'm hearing is on par, there's no need for me to, sometimes put my voice into that. So I'll listen.
Here's what I would tell you. The only way I can answer that is to give you my example, right? So when I decided to become an entrepreneur, I had a very accomplished career as a business development, corporate development person at the time. I was making good money, according to our government, I was a 1%er back then. But for me, my purpose wasn't being fulfilled. I would look at businesses, see what I thought were inefficiencies, see what I thought was, not really delivering the customers the full value they needed. And then it became, what I can do? Because the why was, I think I can do better. Why is, I think I can deliver more. Then it became a what, how can I articulate this in the way of a product or a service that can go towards people? And then what I did, David, is it required a huge amount of vulnerability because I had never done it before. Let me go find some people. And even if I have to, harass them, literally harass them. And there's a couple of people who, if you met them, they're like, oh yeah, man, Julian was like a bulldog. Where, especially in the venture capital community, where I became friends with people, knowing that they would never invest in me because I had already crossed that line, right? Okay, this is a person I'm not going to do business with, but now that we're friends, they can give me the inside scoop, not only on how they work and how they think, but on what I need to do to be able to attract somebody like them.
Right.
And that made all the difference for me. And otherwise, I'd have never had the guts to get, when I raised the first $10 million for Bravian, I went 7 months without a salary. My wife and I lived in Washington, D.C. in the Chevy Chase neighborhood with a 6,800 square foot house.
Right.
And thank God for BMC software and the internet, which allowed me to have a cushion to do that. But I gave up everything, so to speak, to chase this dream of doing it. But in the process of doing that, I made sure I had mentors to walk me through, including, I had one guy, his job was to tell me when it was time to pull the ripcord. Hey, dude, if it's not working out, I'm so sold out on this. I'm so committed. I know I'm blind.
Right.
If it gets to the point where you see I'm hurting and I'm just not recognizing it, if you tug on my shirt and look me in the face and say, hey, Julian, it's time to give it up, go back and get a job, I'll do it. Thank God we didn't get there. It took 6.5 months and the first $10 million rolled into the company.
Nice.
But that whole time, whatever money I had in the bank, every time I looked at my bank account was an illusion. Because the second I looked away, there was a house note or a car note that had to be paid. So figuring out what you want to do, getting a mentor in whatever it is that you want to do, and being vulnerable enough to allow yourself to grow through that process, because you're going to have to diminish before you can increase.
Oh my God. Oh my
Thank you.
God.
I appreciate that.
Shaken down and fulfilled at the end of the day. Hey, so there's a couple of folks that want to ask questions, and Darwin is going to be next. I'd like to have after him Louis Pate, and then I hope I don't pronounce your name wrong, brother, but it looks like it's Okelo. Is that right? He'll let me know if it's right. Darwin, come on, please speak up, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Wanted to start.
What's up, Darwin?
What's up, Julian? Thank you to Julian, and also thank you to David for his consistency holding down these calls, rain, hail, sleet, snow. I think we've been doing this for like 3-4 years now, once a month.
Absolutely.
So thank you for your consistency. My question is somewhat in the same vein as the question that David asked. Like, you took a big leap, and at the end of the day, I really want to understand what was that turning point where you saw and understood that you wanted to go from operator or practitioner to someone who's operating at a strategic level? And the reason why I asked that is because I'm deep in the bits and bytes now, but I think I operate better at a strategic level, and I can bring way more value there. It's something that comes natural to me. So somewhat a self-serving question, but what was that kind of like that spark that ignited that?
So you know me, I'm completely transparent. It was driven by wealth attainment.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that David said earlier. The people who are closest to where the money comes in are the ones that rise to the top. And so one of my mentors, when I told him I wanted to make more money, he's like, well, you can make more money in a lot of ways. You can go find some people and come up with a really great ideal and create a company and continue to be in development of business development, or you can go create a company and run it and try and do it that way, or you can get a job with another company other than BMC and make more money because, you know, maybe they need somebody with your skill set more. I already knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Like I said, when I was doing buy-side M&A, I got to see the other side of what these entrepreneurs were doing, the ones who made these deep sacrifices, and all of a sudden they were about to get paid millions of dollars. And all of them were courageous, but many of them were, you know, what I call just these diehard entrepreneurs. They really didn't care if they ever made another dollar. They were committed to whatever it was they're doing, and the money was almost consequential. But being raised poor and knowing that I never wanted to stay poor, even though I wasn't poor at the time, I wanted to achieve more. Wealth attainment is what drove me towards the business side of the equation. I'd love to tell you I wanted to build a better business because I thought the businesses sucked at the time or all this other stuff. But I just said to myself, hey, if I want to get to the point that I can make, and I'll be quite frank, the benchmark at the time was consistently more than $300,000 a year. I'm never going to be able to do that unless I can put myself in control of driving a business that generates in revenue, you know, 3 million or more in annual revenue with growth. I'm not going to be able to sustain that. So that's what I'm going to go do, because that's what I want to have.
Awesome response. Thank you.
One of the things I learned early, Julian, is that if you want to live, mentor said to me, David, you got to work like others won't work so you can live like others can't live.
That's exactly right.
Comes down to that. And a sacrifice there too. I mean, a lot of sacrifice.
My parents used to say it differently, David, and my mom and dad, I was named after a white man, and they never used any racist terminology with me at all. But it was a reality of their world, and certainly my world, being born in mid-60s, is my mom would always say to me, she says, look, you'll have to work twice as hard for what like a lot of white people take for granted.
Mm.
That was the ideology I was raised with. Just being frank about it, right? It was a generational thing. And so this concept of working hard, working more than the other individual to achieve what you wanted, again, just like you just said, that was instilled in my psyche from childhood.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Julian, I'm going to move on to another couple of questions from the audience, okay?
Sure.
Thank you. Dr. Pate, did you have a question, sir?
Yes, yes. Greetings, everyone. Greetings, everyone. So,
I'm
Julian,
sorry,
thank
I
you.
call him Dr. Pate. He just got his doctorate. I'm like on fire for
Oh,
this brother.
congratulations. Congratulations.
Yeah. So, Julian, thank you for doing this. And I just wanted to say I share a lot of things with you. I was also born in the '60s. In fact, my parents migrated here from the Bahamas. I was born just outside of Tampa in Bradenton. So,
Yeah,
yeah, Bradenton,
that's where I
Florida.
drag race.
Exactly, exactly. And but then I grew up in Miami. Then the faith-based, like yourself and Larry, David, Eric. You know, I know that ICMCP and Cyversity, there's just a backbone of faith that's really this company was built on. I'm sorry, this organization was built on. So what I'm kind of interested in now, like David was saying, I'm getting a lot of petitions for quote unquote Dr. Pate to come and to be on these different boards or committees. But what I want to do is continue to pay it forward. You know, I've had a successful military career, retired from the Air Force, and then I've worked in
Thank
other
you for your
parts of the
service.
government. Thank you, Julie. Worked in the government, and now I'm in a private business. But what I want to do is continue to pay forward, and I'm interested in if you can help me kind of understand which kinds of boards should I agree to serve on, and to give the most impact, that from a strategic pay it forward perspective, I can help underrepresented, underexposed communities to kind of get into cyber/IT.
So one and first month, Cyversity is going to be looking for some additional board members soon. I roll off the board this year. Devin Bryan rolls off the board this year.
Wow. Interesting.
I want to say Larry even also rolls off the board by the end of this year. So that's at least 3 board seats in Cyversity that will be available. So please keep us in mind. But then it goes all back to your why, brother. For me, Cyversity was a no-brainer when Devin laid it out to me. You know, the way he did it, in black and white. We had just prayed about it at RSA. I was looking for something that provided purpose for me, that allowed me to give back to the community in a way where it wasn't self-serving to Julian. I mean, it's interesting that David and I are doing this today. I go out of my way not to be in the limelight with Cyversity. Most people don't even know I'm the chairman. I want to promote everybody else. I want to promote Larry as president. I want to promote, you know, Devin's like me. He also stays in the background a lot. But the whole goal is there's 100 different ways for you to do this. You just need to find the causes and the boards that best align with your why, with your purpose. And again, you should consider Cyversity.
Roger that. Paying it forward. That's my why. That's my why. I feel like I was put here to not just consume it, but to actually deliver it and help other people to kind of better their lives. So to pay it forward.
Well, if you come from a Judeo-Christian background,
yes, absolutely.
Then God designed you to do exactly that. That is your purpose.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
No,
I
you're
see you
more than
smiling, David. I know I'm here to hear about something later.
Yo, I thank you for your sacrifice and being a military man, and I really appreciate you joining the Texas Board of Advisors, the Texas chapter, man. I just think, Pate, since we ran into each other, Pate, a couple of years ago, it was coincidental, man. But I just think it was a design. It was designed.
Yes,
you know how we talk
design.
about God a lot, first of all. And so, you know, we don't have that fear of any of having those conversations or whatever. But and I really appreciate you being here. We both grown together and grown from each other. Brother Okilo, I know I pronounced your name wrong, but you're gonna correct me first on pronouncing your name right. I know you've got a question, so come on, young man.
Yes, hello. My name is Okelo.
Okelo.
Yes, Okelo, Deo Gracias.
Deo Gracias.
Yes. So I'm actually from Uganda, East Africa. I actually joined Cyversity recently. Actually, the beginning of this year, because I'd planned for it last year when I heard of it through a podcast. I believe it was Africa Afternoon Cyberty. But I failed to join last year, but at least this year I made sure I had to join.
Welcome.
Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you. I had a question of how do you maintain traction in terms of, because I'm a student currently, and I'm also doing other education on the side. I'm doing a bachelor's in networking and cybersecurity. At the same time, I'm doing a little bit of Try Hack Me. So how do you maintain the traction and also make sure that you're job ready when the jobs are available?
Well, again, if you're pursuing a degree right now in networking and cybersecurity, in this world, and I don't know what the job market is like specifically in Uganda. I spend most of my time in Kenya when I'm on the continent. My wife's a missionary with an orphanage out of a city called Nakuru. And so even in Kenya, people with cyber backgrounds are in high demand, very high demand. And so again, not knowing enough about Uganda, if it's not in high demand in Uganda and you're willing to leave, even on the continent, especially South Africa, Nigeria, which is your neighboring country there, and Kenya, there's lots of opportunities in cybersecurity. And the way to stay current is there's tons of online resources for, red teaming exercises, purple teaming exercises, capture the flag exercises, tons of stuff you can do online. If your goal, I'm assuming, is to be an operator, that allows you to sharpen your skills until you go into work environment. And then the other thing I would tell you to consider as you're doing this is also doing some certifications. Like if you were in the United States and you went to do cyber with the US government, specifically with DOD or the intelligence community, one of the things they require now is that you have a Security Plus certification. And so, looking at the CompTIA and some of the other organizations, ISC Squared and others, looking at the certifications that they provide and pursuing those, because as an employer, I can tell you, as they relate to what your specific job is, if you've attained those, even without having actual work experience, it means more to me than somebody who just comes to me with a blank college degree. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yes, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Akelo, thanks for asking your question, Akelo.
You're welcome.
Great. Hey, so Julian, I know we're going to be at time soon, but I had a question to ask you about how daunting it is. It seems like it is to get into cybersecurity. Folks that are from underserved communities. I see John McBride jumped on. John, did you have a question?
How you doing? Yeah, I just wanted to thank Mr. Watts.
Wait. First of all, I think we lost him. His phone looks like his phone might have died on him. Yeah, he's back. Julian? He's back. Go ahead, Mr. McBride.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to thank Mr. Watts because he's talking about how he started Cyversity. And actually, because he started Cyversity, I was actually a part of the SANS Diversity program.
Yep.
So I was able to get 3 JIAC certifications. And it actually helps me when I apply to different jobs, because like Julian just said, Mr. Watts just said, they are looking for certifications. And through the SANS Diversity Academy, I was able to get certifications and add that to, I guess you could say, the repertoire, and not just coming in, let's say, with just a bachelor's, but other cyber certification.
Well, first of all, John, thanks for being a member. Thanks for taking advantage of the Cyber Academy through SANS. Thanks for coming back and talking to that, and speaking to that. Julian Waits is looks like we might have lost him, but but we still have some executives here. We still have David Lipscomb. We still have Ty Lambo. We still have Lewis Pate. We still have some executives here who who are at the same, what I would say, the same pinnacle of their career that Mr. Waits said. So if any of you have any more questions, there's still some intelligence here above and beyond just what we've already discussed so far. So it looks like he may or may not be able to make it back, but any other questions from anybody else in the room? And stop it, Lewis, man. You good people. Any other questions from any other folks in the room? All right, so listen, I know we've lost Julian, but let me do this. I'm gonna go back up here and share my screen because I wanted to get back into this whole idea of, oh, there it is right there. Am I sharing my screen, folks? Am I? No, I'm not. Here. I'm going to give you a look at what's coming up over the next couple of weeks, couple of months. There we are here. Excuse me for fumbling. Next month, we're going to be speaking to, hey, there he is down there, Dr. Pate. But next month, we're going to be speaking to Darryl Hawkins. We're going to be interviewing him on the Impact interview series. We're going to be speaking to the Chief Cyber Technology Officer from Otis Elevator. Now, I know you may say Otis Elevator, they just make elevators, but quite frankly, they make elevators in 300 countries, and they've got the largest network, one of the largest enterprise networks in the industry. So this is a gentleman who is controlling and managing the infrastructure, the architecture, the design of a huge organization that spans Asia, it spans Middle East, it spans Europe, and this is the brother that's managing all of that. So you should consider to come back next month and speak with and hear from Darryl Hawkins, who's the Chief Cyber Technology Officer. And in March, he's here today speaking, but Dr. Pate, who happens to be the director, and I think he's more than that. My information is late, Lewis, but Lewis has been the director for the SOC for CACI. For those of you who do not know who CACI is, they're a defense contractor. These guys are winning billions and billions of dollars of contracts from the government and private industry. And Lewis, Dr. Pate, runs their SOC for security. So we're going to be having those. We're going to be having those upcoming questions, those upcoming events. I just want everybody to be aware of those events that are coming up, and ask you to come back again. So I know that there's some real talkative people in the room, like my cousin Derek up there in the corner. Derek, I know you've got a question, sir. Let's hear your question, sir.
How you doing?
How are you, first of all, man? How are you? I haven't seen you in a minute.
Yeah, I'm doing good, thank God. I didn't have a question as much as I had gratitude for Mr. Julian coming on today, and for Dr. Pate, also an Air Force retiree, 38 years, cybersecurity. So I just wanted to say, to give a note of gratitude for these folks who are with us today, and that I join in and also draw from their expertise and their inclusion in Cyversity. Very appreciative.
Great. Cousins down in the Beltway, Lewis, he's still got your clearance, right?
As a matter of fact, the clearance has expired because I haven't been in government for the last 6 years, so my clearance has decrease from, you know, up there to down here, but we can get it cracking again if you need me to.
No doubt.
We'll do what we need to do.
Hey, so I'm not
Let me
going
go
to
talk
call
to somebody. Let me go talk to somebody.
There you go. There you go. Hey,
All right.
I'm not going to call on anybody, but I know a couple of people were asked me not to call on her, but I just wanted to see if she wanted to come online and ask a question of us here today. Because I'm going to be closing out soon, and we've got about 8 minutes left, but I just wanted to see if anybody else had any questions or anything they'd like to contribute to this conversation today. Silence is acceptance. But here's Julian's coming back. Hey, Julian. All right, man. Hey, technology works when it works, and then when it doesn't?
It doesn't. My phone, I wasn't watching it. The phone died. I should have been in the hotel room. I apologize.
Man, please. It's all good. So we were getting ready to close out, Julian. As always, we'd like our guest speaker to ask any questions of us that you may have of us or anyone in the room. We've got mentees here, we've got executives here, and we've got folks that are transitioning in here. Ask any question of us that you'd like to ask. And of course, when we're leaving, just give us your parting thoughts, if you will, on this whole
Well, it's both together. The parting thought is a question. And the question is that I want everybody to leave this call thinking about is post this call and hearing me talk about my life and what I've done. What are you going to do? And I don't care what level you're at, executive, mentee, whatever, no matter where we're at, we can always help somebody else. What are you going to do to help the next person who's trying to step into this for their career? That's the question.
Appreciate it. Julian, man, first of all, I got to say, like I said, it's a real high pleasure to have you come to our Impact interview series and grace us with like I said like I said on LinkedIn, I said, you're going to miss talking to one of the great humanists of our group in speaking with you. That's how I feel. So I really appreciate you coming and speaking with all of us, Reverend. And we both come from a background where our folks were all
in
ministry, right? So it's just great to talk with you. And if anybody else has any questions parting with Julian, we're gonna stop soon, but I just wanted to give anybody else an opportunity to ask a question if they wanted to.
Yeah, and remember, you can reach me at julian.waits@cyversity.org. So happy to communicate with anyone.
I'm gonna put that in the chat, guys.
And we'll do a virtual cup of coffee together if you're not local.
Hey, listen. Also, I put into the chat the survey link that I'd like you all to go to that survey link. Just download that survey link and it's just respond to the survey there. Let the organization know what you think about our conversation and what you think about our time together. As always, Julian, appreciate your time.
God bless you.
I'm looking forward to seeing you real soon, brother.
Yeah, I love you. I love everyone on the call, man.
Yeah.
God bless everyone.
All right. Be well, guys. Thanks all. Talk soon.
Thank you, guys.
Doc, you're on mute, but I'll be reaching out.
Okay, good enough. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We'll talk soon. Have a good day. God bless.
Yes. God bless. Bye, everybody.